Call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nikki, would you do roll call?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Wade? Wade, are you here?
I am.
Thank you. Darcy? Here. Nikki's here. Danielle? Here. Eric?
Here.
Brandon?
Here.
Paige? Here. No absences.
All right, wonderful. Can we get a motion to approve the agenda with mentioning that Jeremy Hill will not be interviewing with us?
Motion to approve. I'll second.
Motion's been moved and approved to approve the interviews down below minus Jeremy Hill. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And we will now get ready for our first interview. We are ready.
Oh, who's doing questions? Are we doing that? You start with
You want to start?
Yeah.
Start. Oh, actually, Paige has got her voice back. She should start.
Paige. That sounds like a great plan.
Paige, you'll start with the first question?
Yes.
Okay, you sound good tonight.
Love it.
Very.
Oh, here you go, dear.
Tell me.
I want that one back. So.
Okay, I'll let you have it. Merchant. Oh, they have good pens.
I know you met my brother admin team today, and the last time, and
That's yours. So,
I'm sorry, I missed you today.
hello there.
I think we're merchant. That's the only thing that makes sense.
Glad to be back, everybody. Thank you. You too. Wally, good to see you again. See you.
Hi, Wally. Good to see you.
Wally, Gnewikow. All right, is that pretty good? All right.
That was really good. Yeah. Do I have the same one on? Oh yeah, it was my dad. So I do have a number of different ones, but yeah, I did keep the same one this time. Yeah. That's awesome. So he was an Elvis fan. Cool. So.
Wally, welcome back.
All right, thank you.
You kind of introduced yourself last time. If you'd like to do a brief history one more time, and then we will get started at the end with Paige. We'll be starting with the first question once you're done with a quick introduction of yourself.
I sure can. I'll be a little shorter this time, but I've had 33 years in public education, 9 years in Toma as a mathematics teacher and a coach. Came to Logan in 2001. I've been there for 24 years, 10 years in the classroom. As a math teacher, loved the classroom, absolutely loved the classroom. Had an opportunity to go into administration, was dean of students for 3 years, then associate principal for 4 years, and then principal for the last 7 years. And I was a math supervisor for a number of years until I became principal, and then with leaders of the building, then they did not have them take on an extra duty as a supervisor at that time. So that's when I gave up the math supervisor role. But I know that's much abbreviated, but that's kind of my career at a class. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
I got my voice back so I can.
Oh, very nice. All right.
Question number 1, how do you develop a yearly budget?
So a budget, I'm not sure. Oh, I looked at number 2. 1 and 2 really do go hand in hand with budget and finances, but I'll try to differentiate a little bit with that. So really budgeting, I believe in education, should be almost a 3-year process. And so I do realize that the first year, I'm already coming in, it'll be more along the lines of learning what is the budget, where is the budget at, where are things earmarked for. So, you know, I'm kind of in the middle of that type of a process. So I guess overall I've done some digging since our last meeting, and probably the most digging I've done is in the finance area of the state of Minnesota. But I do know some things. For example, your audit is in the fall. You have your truth in taxation, and then you report holding a hearing, and then adopting tax levy. I know that by November 30th, you have to have a submission of unaudited financial data. I know that for the next year, generally in January, around January, it could be different from each district, but you're starting preliminary work on the next budget, working all the way through the spring. You end up adopting a revised budget in March, and then, ultimately, you end up looking at your budget in June, and then actually setting it in July. There's a lot of information to digest there. When I talked to Janet Pladcom, just looking ahead, if I was lucky enough to get this position, certainly one of the classes that I would be taking would be on Minnesota finance then also. And I think that would be very helpful. But there's a lot of information to digest. Here's what I can say about me personally, working with budgets in the past. I haven't had a budget this large, obviously. You never have a budget this large until you become a superintendent. But we have a fairly large budget at Logan High School, about $250,000 yearly. And with all the budgets that I've been given, I've always kept, I hope somebody called the business manager over there or the superintendent, but I've always kept within budget. I've always made those tough decisions. And then eventually when you learn your district more and more, you can start seeing where do the priorities need to go, where are we underfunded, where are we overfunded. But that would be, in general, I have been able to work through budgets throughout my career. So,
Wonderful, thank you.
thank you.
So going to question number 2, how are you preparing for the emerging Minnesota state financial level pressures that would impact the district budget? So there's a number of things that they're throwing out there with being underfunded.
There are. In fact, that's my whole orange sheet.
I'm going to let you get your orange sheet then. All right, take it away, Wally.
A lot of this isn't very pretty, okay, but it's where we're at in the state of Minnesota. From what I understand, there's going to be a huge deficit in the 27 to 29 biennium, and it looks like the state is going to mitigate that by maybe being stingy in the 25 to 27, so you don't have quite as drastic of a fall off in the 27 to 29. I know inflation has certainly eaten away at, just like our households, it's eaten away also at school districts' coffers. I know they're looking at an employer increase in TRA. I know that there's been some unfunded mandates from the state. And usually the way the unfunded mandates go is they'll initially give you a chunk of money so you can initially implement it, but then it ends up being the district's responsibility moving forward, and that ends up being a financial burden on the district. I know the Crescent Hoka, like many other areas, most other areas, are dealing with declining birth rates. I know we have some curriculum mandates that also end up being tied to money. For example, the Minnesota READ Act goal. You've got money that's got to be put into literacy and interventions. You've also got to put professional development in there to be able to implement the READ plan. That is all money. I know that both the short-term surplus of the state and the long-term deficit are both going in the wrong direction. I know the tax rate of FMLA looks like it's increasing. The special education transportation aid is decreasing. And you look at all that with the state, and now we've been thrown in a flux as far as where's the federal funding going to come from? What's that going to look like? I think people are nervous about that right now too. Where are we headed from the money that we have been getting from the federal government? Got unemployment funds, cross-subsidy payments for the mandates that involve special education. And then with that, you always want to stay competitive with your salary or benefits so you keep the good people that are in your district. So I do understand that this is going to be one of the most challenging parts of the job with the state of the finances in the state of Minnesota. And I've got open eyes as far as that goes, but that was a lot of digging, and I didn't find a ton of really happy news as I was doing that digging, but it's where we're at, and we deal with it, and we still provide the best education we can for students moving forward. So there we go, orange sheet. All right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Wally, how do you keep the strategic plan a living document rather than a static one?
Well, I like the strategic roadmap. I've read through this I don't know how many times. in the last 2 weeks. So as I've gotten older, I'm a list guy. I have to see things visually. I write things down. That's fun crossing things off too as you accomplish them. But I write those off. So really the first thing I thought of was, why not blow this up and laminate it and have it right in my office so that every day that you're walking in, you're seeing that. You're seeing what the expectations are for the district. You're seeing what the community wants, what the staff wants, what the board wants. You know, you've got your core values listed out right there. So it doesn't become something that a bunch of people put a lot of work into and then it ends up going into a drawer. That's a waste of time and money when that happens. So that's one of the things that I'd like to do to make sure that it is living. You make your decisions then through that lens. You know, what are the district's core values and their mission and vision? When you're thinking about especially big decisions, you know, you go and you say, okay, if I make this decision, is that in line with what the district wants, what the community wants? So I think looking at things through that type of a lens. And then feedback. Feedback as to how we're doing. You know, hopefully I get feedback from the board, get feedback from the building leaders, get feedback from the staff and the community. And sometimes, you know, surveys can be good, they can be bad. How seriously do the people take them? But you have to give the people the opportunity to say what they feel or say what they're thinking, so that their voice is heard. And I think you have to be vulnerable and able to do that. I think when you put those types of surveys out, I think about all the way when I went back to being a teacher, it was a little bit scary when you gave out anonymous surveys even to the kids in your classes, because you're like, oh, what am I going to hear? But it is a way to find out, how do people perceive that you are doing? Okay? But getting back to it, I think not having this in a drawer and having it out where you can see it so you can reference it is a way for it to stay living.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So question number 4, on what criteria do you feel the Board of Education should evaluate your performance as a superintendent?
Well, if I'm chosen for this position, I have individual meetings with the board and then the board as a whole. I hope the board is going to tell me, Wally, A, B, and C are what we really want you to focus on initially. This is what we think are the most important aspects that we want you to focus on early in your tenure. So I want that type of communication, so I'm not going in the dark. I'm not putting all my effort into some areas that I think are going to be making positive strides for the district, and then I find out later that the board was like, no, that wasn't what we wanted. Okay, well then just tell me up front. In general, I believe that a superintendent should be evaluated on really a mixture of things. Certainly outcomes should be one of the areas that a superintendent is evaluated on, but how is the superintendent communicating? Are they following board policies? Are they upholding the protocols that are in place, have been put in place for the district? Are they following the strategic roadmap? And are they taking that into account as they're making decisions? Are you making decisions that are in line with the mission and the vision of the district? One of my biggest strengths is trying to create a positive culture where people feel both safe, but hopefully are enjoying what they're doing. I would hope that would be something that I would be evaluated on. So I guess 2 things. In general, I think it should be a mixture of the most important parts of being a superintendent. And then secondly, I hope the board tells me what they want me to focus on. So, thank you.
Thank you. How do you foster a culture of high expectations for both students and staff?
I think you live it day by day. I think you're a model for what you're expecting other people to do. You better not expect people to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. I just asked for communication from the school board. I would guess the building leaders are going to want communication from me. I would guess that they are going to want to know what are my expectations for them, and they better be high expectations. And then the building leaders, once they feel like, okay, we've got a feel for this, we know what your expectations are, then that ends up going down to the teachers. And the teachers are the ones that ultimately implement those high expectations for the students. I'm gonna flip it around a little bit. I'm gonna flip it 180 because I think sometimes it's easier to think about it from this perspective. I think about low expectations. I come from a school that's over 50% free and reduced. I come from a school where kids come in at their freshman year with many behavioral problems. I come from a school where we have a higher percentage of kids that are on IEPs, and oftentimes those are EBD. I come from a school where some kids have some really rough lives, and they're coming in. If we have low expectations for those kids, we're failing them. We are failing them. Okay? You can hold them accountable for the expectations of what you want, but you can do it with compassion. You can always do that with compassion. Okay? But if you do not have high expectations of them, and they walk out of here 4 years later and they are not prepared for the world afterwards, then you have failed them. And I think that's easier sometimes for people to understand, is to not have low expectations. It's just a different way of looking at it versus how are you going to keep high expectations for the district. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's a widely accepted practice in education you think we should challenge, and why?
Widely accepted.
Chicago math. I don't know.
I got two. All right. I'm going to take one at a time here. I don't know how widely accepted this is, but it certainly has been in parts for education, and that is that the ultimate goal is that we're preparing all students for a 4-year university. Now, that's the route I took, and that is the route that's right for a number of our students and what they're passionate about, where their dreams and goals are going to end up. So that is certainly a pathway, but it shouldn't be widely accepted that that's the only pathway that we should aspire to. You think about our wonderful 2-year colleges in our area. You think about our students that are going to go into apprenticeships, or they're going to go right into the workforce, or they're going to go into internships. You think about the people that have a passion that they're going to go into the military. Those are all different pathways that students may have their passion and be excited about. And as far as I'm concerned, there's not one that's necessarily better than the other. So I don't know how widely accepted that is, but I do feel strongly about that. Another area that I think about is, you asked before how a superintendent should be evaluated. Well, I think about how often schools are evaluated and ends up being very heavy in test scores. That should be a piece. Test scores should be a piece. Growth should be a piece. But how are we educating the whole child? What are some of the areas that we're working on other than just test scores that I wish schools and I wish districts, they could find a better way that ends up being part of the evaluation tool? You know, are we teaching them to be good citizens? Are we teaching them please and thank you? Are we teaching them financial literacy? Are we teaching them about proper nutrition as well as giving them proper nutrition? You know, are we preparing them? You think about ACP. Are we preparing them for what's next, whatever that may be? There are many different areas that we as an educational system should be working with students, and I think that the grading or the report card of schools is often too heavy on just the test scores, and I think that is widely accepted.
Thank you.
How do you maintain strong relationships with union leadership while also advocating for district goals?
Well, for my 19 years, I think I mentioned in night one, I was a big part of the union. I was the head building rep. I was going to be the next president in Toma when I went to Logan. And I believe in unions. I do. They are advocating for their membership. That's their job. Okay? And they should be. Okay? I'm looking out for the entire district, for the students and for the staff. Not that the union is not looking out for those things also, but the union is looking out for the membership. And I'm looking at the big picture of everything involved, including the financial picture. And really, we should be swimming in the same direction. All of us should be working together for those district goals. So while I understand, while I respect everything that the union does, I don't necessarily think that this has to be any type of adversarial, and I hope that we can have some open communication. I'm on what's called joint leadership in the school district of La Crosse, where monthly the superintendent, and then they have a couple building leaders, and then the union leadership. They meet once a month, and a lot of the times it's just to stay and have open communication, so that I think when you have silence, I think this goes for anything. When you have silence, or when you are not communicating, people fill in their own ideas and people fill in their own gaps. So I think it's much better that you do have that type of open communication. But I have respect for the union.
What's your approach to evaluating and developing school leaders, policies, and education programs?
Okay. All right, let's start with the evaluating and the developing of school leaders. And I think about that in two different ways. I think about that with the present school leaders. Well, I want feedback. They want feedback. If we're having a learning and a growth model, our building leaders, and you're not giving them any feedback, how are they supposed to know how they're doing? How are they supposed to know what your expectations are? So I think communication with the present leaders in place. And then I think it's also important that you're developing leaders within the rest of your staff also. And make yourself available to teachers that have those types of aspirations and they're looking to get, for example, principal licensure. I have 14 years as dean, associate, and principal. Okay? I always make myself available so I can answer questions of those teachers that have those type of aspirations. Give them the ability to lead PLCs, lead different committees, show and hone their leadership qualities. Give them an opportunity to sub if we're able to do that financially, so they can develop those types of leadership qualities. The policies and education programs, the policies, I need to look at them, I need to talk to the board, I need to talk to the building leaders. When's the last time that the policies have been looked at? When's the last time they've been updated? Look and see if I see anything glaring that looks out of whack. Okay? Or then bring it to the board and say, can you explain this policy to me, just what the intent is behind this? So those would be just looked at probably policy by policy. Educational programs, that's where I would ask a lot of questions. Okay? While some people might think that the superintendent of a school district is an expert in every area, that is not the case. and I understand that. There may be some building leaders that have a better understanding of some of the, like for example, let's say right now, there's probably many people in this room that have a better idea of quality reading programs, or what's the cutting edge of reading programs at the elementary level. Okay? I'm not an expert on that right now. So asking about those, making sure that they're research-based, and asking those types of questions so that we can see why we're using these programs. Is there something out there better? And if there is something out there better, how much does it cost? I mean, let's be honest, that's part of it too. So that's what I would do initially. I would seek out some experts or people that are in the know more than me.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
What does a good board superintendent relationship look like to you?
Open communication. The board should have their finger on the pulse of the community. In theory, that's what the board should have, their finger on the pulse of the community. The board helps set the vision and mission of the school district of La Crescent Hoka. Now, the everyday execution of the plan, I think that falls to the superintendent. That's day to day, working with the buildings, working with the staff, working with the building leaders. Now you're executing what the vision of the board and the community is, and that's the execution part of it. So I would say that's the delineation between the two. But again, having that type of an open communication with the board certainly helps, so I'm not guessing what it is that you want.
Great, thank you.
How familiar are you with the approach to creating and implementing special education programs?
I've been working in the realm of special education for many, many years. So here's what pops into my mind first. So you've got the programs and processes that you have within the schools. Okay? Then you've got the IEPs of the needs of the individual student. First of all, if you've got best practices in place for all of your students, if you've got best practices of inclusion, of least restrictive environment, universal design for learning, if you've got those good practices in place, then when an IEP comes through and somebody needs accommodations, if you have good policies and practice, you're not reinventing the wheel. You know, you can tweak for those individual needs, you can tweak for those accommodations, but you know, if you don't have good policies in place, there's going to be a big financial burden for what those individual accommodations are necessary. So you need to have good policies and processes in place as a school and as a district first. I've seen the day of a special education teacher. I've seen that in many different ways through the years. I'm very curious to see what does the day of a special education teacher look like at the elementary, middle school, and high school level, and ask what's working and what's not, because I have seen different models, and I want to hear. I want to hear what we think is working and what we think is not. But I think having those universal strategies and best practices in place certainly make it easier than when we have those individual needs of the students.
Excellent. Question number 11. What's your plan to effectively communicate with each stakeholder group as far as students, staff, community, and parents? Maybe give an example?
Sure.
Able? Thank you.
Absolutely. So, well, if you can, talking to somebody is probably the best form of communication, because it doesn't leave any room for what the tone is, okay, or it doesn't leave any gaps. You know, and that's not the end of my answer. I realize there's a lot of ways that you need to communicate, but I'm just saying that, you know, actually, even with a principal, I'd rather just talk to them face to face rather than shoot an email over. So that's my preferred method of communication, and phone calls. But emails have their place in this world. They absolutely have their place in this world, especially when you have to send out mass types of communications. It's just the way it is. So then you have somebody else read the email to make sure, how are you reading this? So somebody else doesn't think, well, is this what you meant? And I say, no, that's not what I meant. Oh, okay. So then we rephrase that. But I guess I would want to know, for example, what's the price of sending out hard mailers to the district? I believe it's got to be fairly expensive. However, are there times when that's what La Crescent Hoka community wants, is some hard mailers for communication? And then you weigh that and you balance that then with the cost. Okay. I don't know if we've experimented with any type of a parent square or anything like that where parents are opting in for texts. I have no idea, but that actually, I'm a little surprised. That's actually first year implemented in the La Crosse School District, and it's actually been fairly successful. Certainly, mass emails out to parents, both family 1 and family 2, as far as trying to get that information out to them. And then I think the staff needs to hear from me, whether that be a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis. I know some superintendents have have done little videos, they film a video of themselves and that goes out on a Friday afternoon every other week, or just some communications. So there are different ways to communicate. I think the key is, what is the most successful? What do the different stakeholders want as far as communication? And then ultimately that you do communicate, that you're not holed up in an office and being silent. That never works. So
Excellent, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. How do you bring resolution to complaints within the district?
Well, I'm sure I will be tested by a number of people within the first couple weeks and months, and I'm sure I will get many emails that should not be coming straight to a superintendent. I totally understand that. I've worked with that at a little smaller level at the building. Usually, here's where it usually happens. It usually happens with incoming freshman parents, okay? Because they've come from different schools, they've come from different districts, and then they met me for the first time and they fire off that email. And so then I call them. First they're shocked that they got a phone call from me. And then I say, well, have you talked to Mr. Smith? Well, no. Oh, okay. Where have you gotten your information? Oh, my kid, and they never lie to me. Okay. So then I send it back and start with the teacher. So I would say the complaints, you start at the lowest level. If somebody's upset with something within their child's classroom, the teacher is the first one to go to. If now they've worked back and forth and there's a fundamental difference and the parent is still not happy with that, at that time the building leader is contacted and the building leader works through those types of conflicts or trying to work on a resolution, because the building principal knows the teacher and the situation better than I do. So you work your way up. Some things are going to get to me. They will. It's okay. Some things are going to get to me, and I guess what I would say is that I will do things clear, consistent, fair, transparent, and trying to keep in mind the core values of the district. And that's the best answer I can give, is that I'll try to get as much information as possible and then make that decision in a clear and transparent manner. But I will not be wading into the person that calls me because their 7th grader is not getting enough playing time in the baseball team. So, but I'm sure I'll get a few of those phone calls and emails. Yeah. That's the same everywhere, folks. That's the same everywhere. Yeah.
How do you ensure we're meeting the needs of the whole child regarding mental health and nutrition? Oh, okay. I think I did touch on that in a couple previous answers, because I think it's important, and it's not, don't get me wrong, reading and math literacy, that's a core that we want all of our kids to go through. But there is more to that. There is more. The mental health issues have gotten larger, especially since COVID. So I'm curious to hear, what we're doing as far as social emotional learning. I'm curious to see what PBIS looks like at every level, because it does look different at elementary levels, middle schools, and high schools. I am curious to see what ACP looks like. I don't know if that's an acronym that's used in Minnesota. Academic and Career Planning. It might have, different states and different districts have different acronyms for that. Nutrition, I think about 2 ways. I think about, first of all, is what are the kids actually putting in their mouths and in their stomachs, and then I think about teaching them about proper nutrition. That's a lifelong important part. Just like the FIAD teachers, I would guess, and health teachers are teaching them about being active and those types of lifelong things. So is what you put in your body as far as nutrition goes. I think about financial literacy. Having these kids not walk out of here at the age of 18 and get themselves in a massive credit debt immediately because that they didn't understand how the financial system works. type of financial literacy. And then I also believe in, you know, a lot of these students that graduate from La Crescent and Hoka are now going to become citizens and going to be living right in our area. So we want them to be good citizens. And we want them to treat people the way that they want to be treated. So I do believe in pleases and thank yous. I do believe in kindness and compassion. I do believe in those areas that we should be trying to model for our students. So the whole child is very important.
Excellent. Thank you.
That was the last question.
Oh my goodness.
Do you have any other questions for us?
You know, I asked before what was important to you. That was something I wanted to know. Walking out of here, I don't think I want to open up a can of worms. If I'm selected, then I have a number of questions for you.
Fair enough.
But I don't think so at this time. I just hope in 2 nights I've been able to show who I am.
Wonderful. Thank
All right,
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
All right.
Thank you. Motion for a 15-minute recess.
How about we do 20 since Wally talked quick?
All
right.
Oh,
I was
Twenty.
all right.
20 minutes.
Be sure to tell your wife that.
I will.
Board members, I would ask that we do not talk about the interviews during our little 20-minute recess.
Thank